unusually warm February afternoon in 1942, a convoy of the Imperial Japanese Navy.
Right, off the bat, we've actually got a silhouette of the Japanese battleship, the Yamato, rather than the Miyako class cruiser of Nachi, and the light cruiser Ijinsu, which is, I believe, a Tenryu class destroyer. So that is a recurring problem. They just use the Yamato. It's like, they're just slapping most generic thing on rather than doing the research, which, I mean, they might need the research. I mean, problem is, Battle of the Java Sea, it is really confusing. No one can actually properly piece together what happened. So, yeah. But that is something to keep an eye out for. Yeah.
Sailed through the Java Sea. Suddenly, Nachi's scout plane relayed a worrying message. 2 columns of an Allied striking force were spotted nearby. As sailors donned working uniforms and officers adorned white dress attire, they rushed to their stations. Seeking solace in ship shrines, they clasped.
I don't actually know if they did that, to be honest. We need to bear with, but there we go. There you go, the initial phase. But it's like you've got, actually they were quite far away in terms of it. Looking at the map, you've got Jinsu way further north. Actually, the Allied columns be way further north, actually, not that close. And then with Hagur, they've got it as a destroyer, which is odd. So, yeah, bit of an error.
Hachimaki headbands as rising sun battle ensigns fluttered in the wind. Every officer and sailor understood the danger of an advancing hostile fleet. In a matter of minutes, the decisive battle of the Java Sea would break out. In early 1942, Japan successfully steamrolled.
That's actually good. They got actual footage, but to some degree.
After conquering Singapore and vital cities of the Dutch East Indies, the main island of Java became the next target.
Basically, Singapore fell on February the 15th, 1942. Basically, Japanese, they gradually moved, so they conquered British North Borneo, and then they moved into Dutch Borneo. They invaded the island of Sumatra. They invaded the Celebes, military-wise, because it got Kendari. Actually, has Kendari too, which is military significance. So, yeah.
The Allied Joint Command faced challenges such as insufficient forces and communication difficulties. After the British and American commanders left for Ceylon,
They did not. Admiral Pausler, basically Admiral Hart was removed because the Dutch thought he was less aggressive. The British wise, it was a bit more complicated, but they did maintain a form of communication in terms of being in Java itself. General Wavell, obviously, he departed so long, but
Dutch Admiral Conrad Helfrich took charge. Dutch troops, especially the King's Netherlands Indies Legion, were experienced.
yes, the officers were big, but the majority it was Indonesian troops who had no real desire to fight. I mean, Legion obviously experienced, but
And their navy had modern destroyers and submarines.
I don't really think you call an Admiral class destroyer modern. The only modern ship I would say with torpedoes was the Trump. The light destroyer, a light cruiser, a very light cruiser in definition. It was 3 turrets, 2 5.9-inch guns, two lots of torpedo tubes, 3 on each side. So yeah, so basically Trump was damaged in the Battle of the Bardi Strait. Well, she was damaged. She had to go to Ceylon for repairs. Basically, the prelude to Battle of Java Sea, Admiral Dorman, Rear Admiral Dorman, said to the captain of Trump, Jan de Meester, Jan, I fear we will not see each other again, indicating that Dorman knew this was a one-way mission of some description. Submarines, yes, they were modern, and they'd in fact taken their toll on the Japanese. They actually sank Japanese troopship off Kotobaru. They caused mischief, particularly in terms of Japanese anti-submarine techniques were poor. They were alright, but they were poor to a certain degree.
The flagship Rutyer, designed specifically for East Indies service, had advanced weaponry.
She had 3 6-inch two-gun turrets and 1 single 6-inch gun turret in the fore, 2 in the aft. She was built at a time when Dutch government was pacifist, and they decided that most of their armaments would be in the rear of the ship, which, I mean, logically, I mean, you can understand why, but truthfully, she had 2 screws, which meant that if one screw is disabled, she would be unable to steer. She was fast, but the problem is, as I said, 2 screws. 4 screws means there's less chance of being disabled. 2 screws, you've got a higher chance of, if you lose one propeller, you're going to go in circles. There were no ifs, no buts. You're going to go in circles.
Key vessels of the combined command included USS Houston, HMS Exeter, light cruisers from Britain, Australia.
Avdicon wise, by February 42, they had terms of basically the Boise, the American light cruiser, she departed for repairs, having had basically a couple of holes knocked in her by a uncharted reef. Light cruiser from Australia is the Perth, along with her sister ship, the Hobart. Britain-wise, it was the D-class cruiser series, so the Danae and the Dragon. Those sort of cruisers, they were very old, 6-inch gun cruisers. US, it was really the Houston, and that was probably, I think that was USS Phoenix as well. But she was escorting convoys. Destroyer-wise,
And the US, along with
I missed the Java, the Dutch destroyer, light cruiser Java, that as well.
destroyers. Challenges included older British light cruisers being withdrawn, shortages and damage. Rear Admiral Carol Dorman commanded the surface naval forces, dealing with cumbersome communication methods. On February 18th, as the Japanese advanced onto Bali, Admiral Dorman led a night strike on Japanese vessels in Badung Strait.
It was absolutely chaotic engagement. They the Japanese destroyer banged to rights. They missed a chance, but to be honest, they were no real deal to finish her off, given the fact that they were damaged themselves.
However, chaos ensued, and exchanges of fire resulted in minimal damage. Additionally, the Dutch destroyer Piet Hein was lost. The Allies retreated to Java's main naval base, Cilacap, and the American destroyer Stuart, damaged in the engagement, ended up capsizing in a floating dry dock. As the Allies prepared for the next engagement, they realized their fleet could hardly face the Japanese. Only 4 1920s-era destroyers, Ford, Edwards, Alden, and Paul Jones, were available, limiting their firepower in rough seas. The heavy cruiser, USS Houston, had suffered damage during an air raid, rendering its damaged turret useless.
This was during the Battle of the Flores Sea, where basically Japanese bombers scored a very lucky hit on the Houston, knocking Titan number 3 out of action. So it was in air raid. I mean, it's Battle of the Floor Sea.
Meanwhile, the Japanese forces were approaching Java with a large fleet. 2 columns of 56 transport.
Again, there's the Yamato. Like, the Yamato wasn't anywhere near Dutch's India. She was, I believe she was working at repairs, and she'd just been commissioned into service.
Guarded by heavy cruisers, light cruisers, and a light aircraft carrier, advanced from the west, while another force with 41 transports, heavy cruisers, a light cruiser, and destroyers approached the east. In total, these transports held 2 divisions and the headquarters of Japan's 16th Army. Admiral Takeo Takagi was tasked with protecting these convoys with a significant naval force. Smaller convoys sailed north and south of Java, screening the ocean and preventing Allied submarines from interfering. Takagi commanded a strong combat group comprising the Myoko-class heavy
Miyoko, not Maiko, Miyoko.
cruisers Nachi and Haguro, the Sendai-class light cruisers Jutsu
These are Sendai, not.
and 14 destroyers. Despite favourable weather and visibility, Allied submarines failed to pose a threat as their torpedoes were malfunctioning.
The American submarines had torpedo problems. The British and the Dutch did not have the same torpedo problems, unfortunately.
Though unable to attack, American submarines reported on Japanese movements, warning Helfrich. With this intelligence, Helfrich sent Dorman and an Allied squadron to depart from Batavia to Surabaya. Despite problems like the disabled gun turret on the USS Houston and a leaking boiler on the Dutch destroyer Kortenaya, the fleet departed. On February 26th, Admiral Dorman's fleet sailed from Surabaya, unable to find the Japanese. Helfrich received intelligence the Japanese were now to Dorman's northwest. He urged Dorman to set sail again the following day to intercept the Japanese convoy. Despite personnel exhaustion, the force headed north, with Dorman signalling his ships to follow and intercept the enemy unit. Takagi, receiving intelligence an Allied fleet may be poised to intercept him, dispatched a float plane while sending the majority of the convoy to the west, while taking his battleships.
Yeah, there was heavy cruisers. That's there. I don't know whether it's an AI doing the work or whether it's someone reading off a screen, but it's actually heavy cruisers. But it was actually they did. Admiral Dorman did a conference, basically before the fleet left Surabaya. But basically it was it was
To confront Dorman's ships. The striking force was organised into 2 columns, led by Dorman on de Ruyter. The first column included Exeter, Houston, Perth.
yeah. So we got Rutyer, as the first one. Then we got Exeter. We got Houston. We then got Perth, which is I don't know why it's over there,
And Java,
but like because Java is there.
with British destroyers preceding de Ruyter as a screening force. Meanwhile, American and Dutch destroyers formed a separate column at the cruiser's rear and port quarter, hindered by older engines and weaker armour. While Dorman's ships ventured north, the Japanese had spotted their vessels approaching.
Yeah, it's actually the Allied fleets were actually quite far in terms of but basically the Java Sea. So actually the Allied cruisers were actually quite far to the south, not in this video, shown in the video. Basically they were between basically 4:35 p.m. they were between 112 degrees and 10 degrees, 112 and 20 degrees. The Japanese, on the other hand, were quite far between 6 degrees and 20 degrees and 112 degrees and 20 degrees. Basically, they're quite far apart. They were not this close to each other, unfortunately. They had spotted the Allied column due to the closest they really got was at about 4:45 p.m. That was the closest the Japanese column under light cruiser Naka. They got that close.
They closely monitored their movements. Nachi scout plane reported the enemy's direction and speed.
There's the Yamato again. The outline, it's just sloppy. Sloppy editing, I believe. So it's a bit sloppy, to be brutally honest with you. It's like, you could just find a Miyoko class cruiser, not a Yamato. Like, I mean, how hard is it really? I mean, of course, effort goes into this, but maybe let's do the research.
To its commander, Rear Admiral Raizo Tanaka's light cruiser Jinsu led 8 destroyers.
Actually, it was 4 destroyers. So the Japanese squadron was Jinsu, Yutakaze, Tokinkaze, Amatsuzukaze, and Hatsuzukaze. We then got another one which led by destroyer Ushio, led by 4 destroyers again. They did join columns, but realistically, it's yeah.
Followed by Rear Admiral Shoji Nishimura's flotilla, and the heavy cruisers Nachi and Haguro at the rear. At 4:15 p.m.
It's at 4:10 p.m. So 4:12 p.m. signalled. That's broadly correct. Unfortunately, 3 minutes later, 4:15 p.m. Electra reported 2 battleships to starboard, and she corrected it to 2 heavy cruisers. So that was.
Electra identified the Japanese cruisers Jinsu and Amatsukaze. The ensuing engagement saw both sides unleashing broadsides from a distance of 28,000 yards, with a combined arsenal.
Actually, that's not true. They unleashed 18,000. So basically, the force under Jinsu opened fire at 18,000 yards, and Nachi, at a range of 28,000 yards, fell. So basically, heavy cruisers were at 28,000 yards. The Jinsu and that destroyer column was at 18,000 yards.
Of 20 8-inch guns. Communication challenges arose as Doorman had not yet issued the command to open fire, according to Royal Navy protocol, leading to some ships holding fire. The initial Japanese shells fell short, providing the Allied convoy time to organise. Doorman then ordered a course change and positioned British destroyers for a torpedo strike. Simultaneously, he sought air support from Surabaya, but no bombers arrived. Finally, Doorman gave the order, and the Allied heavy cruisers, notably Houston with crimson-dyed shells, initiated a fierce exchange. Jinsu aimed directly at Electra, initiating a fierce exchange of fire. Perth, positioned at the rear of the Allied line, joined the barrage after Electra and Jupiter. Despite 8 intense minutes, neither side scored hits. At 4:31 p.m., a Japanese 8-inch shell struck De Ruyter, but it failed to detonate. Doorman altered course, aligning both columns for the light cruisers to engage. The Japanese, led by Nishimura on Naka, unleashed 43 long lance torpedoes. A malfunction in Houston's forward main gun director disrupted gunnery control. On the 5th salvo, The crew faced the near impossible task of loading and ramming the breech by
there was only, actually, to be honest, there was, it's,
by hand, maintaining pace with the other turret for 65 salvos until repairs were completed. Exeter finally achieved a straddle after a dozen salvos, creating anticipation among the crew, although initial excitement over perceived damage turned out to be unfounded. Exeter faced misfortune as a shell penetrated.
So 508, yes, actually it was a 4-inch gun shield on the starboard side aft and entered boiler room B, where it did not detonate but landed inside a boiler, where the heat caused it to explode. Basically, she lost speed down to 11 knots.
Its gun shield at 5:07 p.m., causing casualties and severe damage to boilers. The vessel's speed significantly dropped, and damage control efforts were impeded by intense heat. With 6 out of 8 boilers inoperable, Exeter's electrical power failed. Captain Gordon altered course to avoid a collision, but communication breakdowns ensued. The confusion led to a disorganized Allied fleet, with destroyers following Exeter, assuming they missed a signal to steer to port. This led to Dorman's flagship, de Ruyter, advancing on its own against the Japanese line. Realizing the danger, Dorman ordered an increase in speed and a turn to port, while destroyers deployed smoke screens to conceal disarray. Exploiting the chaos, the Japanese closed in. At 5:27, Tanaka issued the order to open fire, with over 90 torpedoes launched in under 30 minutes. The Japanese salvo found its mark, striking the Dutch destroyer Courtenaire, which violently split into 2 sections and sank rapidly.
Courtenaire, she sank in 1 minute 50 seconds, which was actually quite quick. Yeah.
Despite the Japanese launching over 90 torpedoes with only 1 hit, the Allies struggled to comprehend the torpedoes' long-range capabilities. Speculation about Japanese submarines arose. In response, Dorman devised a plan to protect the damaged Exeter, directing a strategic retreat enveloped in a smokescreen. Recognizing the need for cover, Dorman directed his 3 British destroyers, Electra, Encounter, and Jupiter, to execute attacks before rendezvousing with the Dutch destroyer Vita de With to escort Exeter to Surabaya.
So, basically, the destroyers, they charged.
Faced a fierce assault from Jitsu.
What actually happened is they went back through the smoke screen, they charged a light cruiser and its accompanying destroyers. Where was it? She basically faced 10 Japanese destroyers. She basically hit Asagumo with a direct hit on the engine, whipping with 5-inch shell fire. 3 hits from Minagumo. First, communications gone. Main switchboard electrical system and the engine room was gone as well. She
Accompanying destroyers, despite Electra firing torpedoes in an attempt to retaliate.
Yeah, that's actually really not correct. Basically, she landed shells on Asagumo. She hit Tokitsaku and Minigumo. She hit Jinsu with one 5-inch shell, killing 1 and wounding 4. In desperation, she launched torpedoes, but since she was stopped, she could not get them to spread out. They all missed.
Jinsu continued its assault. Electra's turrets were incapacitated. A fire ignited, obstructing ammunition supply to turrets, and the ship's auxiliary boats were damaged. The ship became inoperable. Commander Cecil Waitford May reluctantly issued the order to abandon ship as it rapidly descended to the depths. Of the 173 men on board, 54 would survive. Commander May refused to leave the ship and descended with her. Electra's sacrifice, while unable to prevent Exeter's damage, did score a single hit on Jinsu.
Yeah, that actually, that's a single hit, of course, but she actually knocked Asagumo's boilers out of line. So that is another criticism I do have, is that whether they're using an AI or whether it's someone actually saying it, really they're not doing it for me, to be honest. I mean, it's an alright video so far, but my errors in here just littered throughout gradually.
This granted Encounter and Jupiter the opportunity to emerge from the smoke, launching torpedoes at the Japanese. Encounter skillfully maneuvered, launching torpedoes before Jupiter and Rutyer joined the effort. However, Rutyer suffered damage during the maneuver, with a loose depth charge exploding and shaking the ship.
That's accurate. In terms of this section, it's accurate. In terms of, she did, 2 depth charges were dislodged, and she ended up being damaged. Damaged propellers and 2 dynamos. Yeah.
Facing the loss of Electra and Cortana, Doorman began reorganizing his dwindling fleet. During their retreat, the heavy cruisers Nachi and Haguro seized the opportunity to close in. Target the struggling column. Finally, at sunset, as communication faltered and signal lights were destroyed, both Allied and Japanese forces altered course in opposite directions, marking a temporary pause in the combat.
Yeah, that's the problem. I get adverts, so no one know I'm here.
Initially, Doorman's ships sailed to the southeast, but within half an hour.
Right, so they basically skipped the see, there we go. They skipped the 4 Pipers doing a counter-attack, I believe, so I don't know, maybe they did, maybe they haven't, but...
Doorman ordered his ships to sail to the northwest to meet the Japanese ships once again. Doorman's forces now.
Yeah, so basically, I believe maybe they skipped out the Destroyer Division counterattack. May they have? May
Faced
know.
the challenge of engaging the enemy with limited destroyers and supplies. During the brief lull,
Yeah, they basically, I believe they've skipped basically the American Destroyer Division 58. Yeah, Destroyer Division 58. I believe they actually skipped that out, unfortunately. But well, basically they launched their torpedoes, all of which missed. So yeah. Yeah, so basically they so the American destroyers they counterattacked, launched torpedoes at the Japanese. They all missed, or one of them, in the case of the USS Paul Jones, it misfired. But they covered Dorman's retirement, so to put it, a very expensive one. But they were low on fuel. and they headed back to Surabaya.
Kagi seized the opportunity to recover his 5 seaplanes. This manoeuvre, however, rendered his ships nearly immobile when Doorman's force re-emerged.
Trying to find. Yeah, they did actually stop to recover float planes. Actually, did a change of course. Japanese Navy policy. No float planes will longer be recovered at sea.
Meanwhile, Exeter and her escorts steamed towards Surabaya. The Japanese did not expect the Allied fleet to return. In response to skepticism on Nachi's bridge, Commander Ishikawa angrily confirmed the approaching enemy ships.
So, a bit backwards, if you skip back. So basically, Destroyer Division 58 did not follow. They headed back to Surabaya. Commander Binford said, start quote, I'm not going in there after Dorman, end quote. Start quote again, that Dutchman has more guts than brains, end quote. So basically they went into the cleared channel on the minefield into Surabaya. Behind them, the combined striking force disappeared into the darkness.
Kagi, caught off guard, took 3 crucial minutes to order his crew back to action stations.
That's actually incorrect. Destroyer Division 58 should not be there. They should be back. They should not be there at all. They should be heading back to Surabaya.
As the engagement resumed, Jinsu's flare illuminated it as a target, prompting Perth and Houston to open fire. But their shells fell short.
I mean, unless I'm getting a bit muddled, but 6:06 p.m. I mean, maybe I got muddled, but
Led his destroyers towards the Japanese cruisers, Nachi and Agura. Binford's destroyers launched their torpedo attack, but all torpedoes missed. Suffering heavy fire, Binford initially steered towards Dorman, who was sailing east, in an attempt to reach safety.
I don't know whether they've got the facts minded up, unless it might be me, but to be honest, it's basically you've got battle engaged, Exeter's hit, Electra takes on the Japanese, basically combined striking force covers Exeter back to Surabaya. Japanese launch torpedo attacks. Basically 6:06 p.m. She flashed a one-way signal for 4 Pipers of US destroyed in 58 counterattack. Basically, the next order was cancel counterattack. Another order, make smoke. Finding one last order, cover my retirement. Basically 6:20. Basically they were actually 22,000 yards, I believe. Japanese were. Basically 6:17 p.m. they launched torpedoes. 6:27. 6:30. Basically the so they actually headed. Yeah. I mean, might not be, but
The distance between them and the Japanese increased.
yeah, that's actually an incorrect ship, whatever it is. It's a Fort Piper. It's a World War One design. Looks like it. Actually, it's should actually be a J-class destroyer, as a matter of fact.
Then he received a confusing signal to follow, implying a risky attack. The Allied force changed course. Binford's 4 American destroyers struggled to keep pace. Binford voiced his reluctance to plunge after Dorman, noting, "I'm not going in there after Dorman. That Dutchman has more guts than brains." Opting to head for Surabaya for refueling and ammunition reload, Binford, unable to reach Dorman directly, radioed shore bases to relay the message to Dorman. However, these did not reach the Dutch admiral, as he sailed on, oblivious to the detachment of 4 destroyers leaving the line. The tranquility of the night was shattered at 9:25 p.m.
Actually, maybe that's not actually, to be fair. I don't actually know, to be honest. I mean, second the third phases, yes, they were there. So maybe actually 9:20. It's actually around 9:30. I mean, we don't know where it was, but Jupiter passing over Tavan Bay. Basically, Jupiter suffers an explosion from what turned out to be a Dutch mine. Skipper managed to keep her afloat for 4 hours, and she was actually disabled so close to the Java coast. So that is another criticism I have, is the fact that it's not entirely accurate, because actually what happened was first engagement, the fleets met each other, Exeter was damaged, they then combined striking force covered Exeter to withdraw back to Surabaya to repair. Exeter led a counterattack, destroyed Division 58, led theirs, and basically they encountered the Japanese. No hits were scored either side. So yeah.
By a colossal explosion. Jupiter, at the tail of Dorman's column, struck a Dutch mine.
Yeah, that's correct. She did strike a mine.
84.
Don't actually know, to be honest. But she sank at 1:30 next morning.
4 died, 97 were captured by the Japanese, and 83 were rescued by the Allies. Learning of Jupiter's sinking, Dorman altered course north. It wasn't until 11 p.m. that both sides spotted each other again.
Basically, at about 10:15 p.m, they heard voices coming from the water. So they actually crossed across the area of the afternoon action. They passed the survivors of the Cortina. So basically, it would be Encounter was dispatched to pick up their survivors, which she did. She picked up 113. She dropped them off in Surabaya instead. Don't know who ordered them to pick them up. Either Admiral Dorman, Rear Admiral Dorman, or Captain Waller of HMAS Perth. Dorman ordered Perth to use her radio to have the survivors picked up, basically he had the authority to order it, but not the means. He had the order picked up, but not the authority. Basically, Encounter picked up on the message. Around 10 p.m, float planes forced to retire for lack of fuel. Basically, they were blind to each other's movements. They had no idea where the other was. Basically, 11:15 p.m, the Rutyer signalled to Perth. Basically, they decided Nachi and Haguro. Initially, that seems to be correct. I'm looking at the nighttime engagement. 11:03 p.m, Nachi and Haguro going north to south. So
Nachi and Haguro headed south, while de Ruyter, Perth, Houston, and Java moved north. Bright moonlight bathed the battlefield as both sides opened fire at extreme range, neither side scoring direct hits. At 11:22 p.m,
So yeah,
Nachi launched 8 torpedoes, and Haguro unleashed 4 at the Allied column. One found its mark on de Ruyter.
yeah, that's actually incorrect. It was actually 11:36 p.m. Java here at the rear end of the column. She basically, I believe Japanese cruisers should actually be. What the Japanese cruisers did was they went down south. They then did a U-turn, and as they're heading north at 11:23 p.m, Haguro launched her torpedoes 1 minute earlier, 11:22, and Nachi launched hers, which at 11:36 p.m. On February 27, 1942, one of them hit Java. So that's
Ruyter, triggering an explosion that engulfed the flagship's stern in a sea of flame.
what actually happened. Was basically Dorman was ordering the Allied column back into formation. Basically, Java turned too late. She hit 8 torpedoes firing at Nachi. Basically, her aft magazine exploded. Less than 15 minutes after being hit, she reared up and sank. Yeah, out of a crew of 528, 19 survived. They just fell into a rain squall. Dorman reformed the column. They made estimations. There was actually, so it's due to turn to southeast. There was surprise and extreme consternation on the bridge of the Rutyer when a telegraph was spotted wakes approaching from relative bearing 135 degrees. Quote, "What is that?" End quote. The response time from Dawn was calm and matter of fact. Start quote. "Oh, that's a torpedo." End quote. That is actually one of the more. It's not odd, but to me it is. It's like you've got, you realise there's a torpedo coming, and yet you're calm. So it's a bit odd. It's not odd per se, but basically it was she turned too far. So she basically it knocked out the dynamos, causing a loss of power. The explosion started a fire. Basically, after the catapult was an inferno. Basically, it hit. The fire reached the 40mm ammunition. Problem was, she was in a fatal conundrum. The fire could not be put out without restoring power, yet power could not be restored without putting out the fire. It was doomed. Basically, the fire on the anti-aircraft deck reached pyrotechnics locker, where basically flares, signal and star shells shot into the air. Start a quote, like the 4th of July on the Chicago waterfront, end quote. Basically, so, yeah, that's actually incorrect. Okay, that's partially correct, but Japanese cruisers, they should have turned and disappeared by now. It was actually there, because they did a U-turn and they launched their torpedoes. It's misleading in terms of what they are in terms of actually per se.
Rockets soaring into the night sky. Perth, observing the calamity unfold, turned to starboard to avert a collision with the flagship. Houston also took evasive action. Then another.
So they've got that bit incorrect. It was actually Java was struck first, and then Rutyer. After basically Java was lost first, so she was sunk first at 11:36. Trying to reform the column, Rutyer was struck and doomed.
The Japanese torpedo struck Java, setting off a massive fire. Perth's crew could feel the heat as Java came to a halt.
Actually, she actually came close to Rutyer. So, quote, smell burning plate and a whole horrible stink like burning bodies, but she actually managed to clear Dutch. Basically, so the Japanese should disappear by now. Java actually should sink around about here. Rutyer turn and sink about here, roughly give or take. So yes, but incorrect.
Tilting almost vertically. Captain
I'm actually surprised to find a picture of Van Starland, to be honest. I mean, it's, well, to be fair, I mean, research-wise, it's broadly alright. In terms of actual animating it, it's a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Philip Van Stralen ordered the abandonment of the ship, but of the 528 men on board, just 19.
Yeah, that's correct.
Distinctive superstructure of De Ruyter disappeared, marking the final cataclysmic moments of the cruiser. The detonation triggered the explosive discharge of the ship's 40mm anti-aircraft ammunition. As De Ruyter descended into the depths of the Java Sea, Admiral Carol Dorman transmitted.
It's Rear Admiral, actually. It's Admiral. That is something that, unfortunately, some people make it was an Admiral. He's actually a Rear Admiral. A school big Bill Nacht. Pardon, sorry, my Dutch, that was actually horrible. But basically it was, yeah, she was,
One last signal. Instruct.
basically, yeah, that's broadly correct. She ordered, basically an oldest lamp on the Rutyer flushed their answer. Do not stand by for survivors. Proceed to Batavia.
All ships not to linger but to leave survivors and make their way to Batavia. With this, Admiral Carol Dorman and 344 officers and men of the Royal Netherlands Navy joined the depths of the Java Sea.
That's actually, it's correct to a certain degree, but basically Rear Admiral Dorman, he could basically only oversee the evacuation of glowing blast furnace this flagship would become. Basically Captain Lecomble had nets and rafts tossed overboard and gave the order to abandon ship. Start quote, jump lads, she's had it. Godspeed, end quote. The ship's surgeon stayed with them. Admiral Dorman turned to his own fate. Basically, we don't know what happened, to be honest. Some say they've seen in the water, him and the captain were seen in the water, in the lifeboats, already dead. Some say he returned to the bridge and disappeared. The most recent scholarship has identified a survivor who saw Dorman and Lacombe talking in a passageway before they retired to a cabin where it is believed that they shot themselves. We don't know, to be honest. We don't know. Basically, so we don't actually know truly what happened to them. We know some stuff, we don't know at all. 2:30 a.m, the Rutyer disappeared under the waves.
Recognising the dire situation on the Perth, Captain Waller, now the senior officer present afloat, ordered the Perth and Houston to disengage, execute a feint southeast, and then steam at high speed to Batavia for refuelling, rearming, and further orders. In total, the Allies...
I'm not entirely sure why Exeter's down there. She should be at Batavia, having suffered boiler damage.
2 light cruisers, 3 destroyers, and suffered significant damage to multiple ships.
Not applicable for the damaged and wounded.
Over 2,300 sailors were killed.
Yeah, but they were... So basically, Duluth and Java were lost. Caught in a encounter... No, not encounter. Electra were lost. So was Jupiter. They've actually got the 4-piper. That's broadly correct.
In contrast, the Japanese suffered damage to just 1 destroyer, with 36 sailors killed.
I mean, they got the Yamato as the background blueprint, which, okay, it's ish, but I mean, what does it kind of works to a certain degree.
The Battle of the Java Sea was over. The road for Japan lay open to invade the island. Dorman's sacrifice had not been enough. The battle marked the near annihilation of the Allied fleet in the region. This pivotal moment would herald the beginning of a dark chapter as Japanese land forces invaded Java. The Japanese now controlled vital resources, including...
I believe they're planning to cover the Sunda Strait and the second Battle of the Java Sea. To be brutally honest, truthfully, there were some parts they got right, there were some bits they got wrong. On the whole, it's a decent video, but it's one that I would really not recommend to people, to be honest. It's a mishmash, to be honest. There's bits where they got the map stuff incorrect in terms of the action, where quite clearly something should be happening, it's not. But yeah, it's ish, it's alright. I mean, to be fair, I'm looking at the sources wise, it's photos, painting, imagery, public domain, wiki comments, okay. Machinima, Total War, Creative Assembly.